Well, I'm the best corner in the game. Don't you ever talk about me.
Picked off. It is Richard Sherman. It's picked off by Sherman. Now, buckle up. Here he goes.
And it is intercepted by Richard Sherman. Broken up. Picked off. This game is over.
Well, we're back. Another episode of the Richard Sherman podcast with my host, Mitch Eisenstein. And man, they got me. I thought I could do it. I was doing it. I was really doing it. I was out there. 3 days of practice, bang, got it done. Mission complete. Another week of practice, bang, got it done. Mission complete. 3 days after, didn't get it done. My old body said, yeah, that's enough. Sat me down. So got a little of a strained hamstring. I'll get my MRI soon, so we'll have more of an update later, but nothing too serious, nothing to keep me out too long term. I mean, at most, I think a couple weeks, but goodness gracious, I was just starting to get my rhythm. But, you gotta roll with the punches in this game.
You didn't think that 3 games in 11 days was what you were signing up for when you jumped on the plane to Tampa Bay, eh?
No, I didn't know what I was signing up for, but we need to talk about that. And I think, I tried to roll with the punches and they punched a little too hard at the end.
Rich, I was fired up, man. Thursday Night Football, turn on the game. Brady and the boys drive down, score on the opening drive, and then you guys come out in defense. And what was it, 2-3 plays in on the second play? When I watch the game, I love watching the defense, but I typically, keep my eyes on you and your play. And when you went down and put your hands behind your knees, it was, to me, I'm like, oh shit, here we go. And then sure enough, the next play. Did you feel it? Obviously, the play before, or when did it happen?
Yeah, it happened to play before, but I thought I could gut it out and thought I could soldier through. And we got out there, and Jalen rolled out the pocket and threw it to Watkins. And I realized I could not move like I wanted to. And luckily he was on the ground already, and Jay White had, kind of made an attempt to make a play at the ball, and he was on the ground, so I just tagged him down and got out of there as quickly as possible.
Hey, at least you got the tackle on this injured play, man. Right. I know
right.
I mean, you look at when you tore your Achilles. I know Kobe was somebody that motivated you when that happened. You're one tough SOB, and for you to walk off the field with a torn Achilles is beyond impressive. But to play with a hamstring issue, that's something you might want to let it rest up so it doesn't linger throughout the weeks ahead. You guys got clearly playoff and Super Bowl aspirations ahead, so it's glad to hear that you're okay. And I guess we'll see what happens with the MRI tomorrow. But
yeah. But it was really cool to see my teammates step up. Jamil Dean had a heck of a game, man. He had 3 PBUs, an interception, two weeks in a row, got an interception, out there playing fantastic football. And hats off to him. He's playing really confident. I mean, those guys are really fast. They had a really speedy receiver core, and on his interception, you could see him running step for step and making a play on the football. And that's what it's going to take. That's what's really cool about this team is there's so much depth. And when Carlton Davis comes back, and when Sean comes back, it's going to be even better.
Yeah, you talk about depth. Throughout the week, it was funny because Leonard Fournette was quoted basically saying something that you had said to him in the locker room about how this team is the most talented team you've ever been a part of. It's wild because when I was watching the game last night, when O.J. Howard scored, I'm like, holy cow, he's tight end number 3, former first-round pick out of Bama. I mean, how deep truly is this team so that, the listeners can fully understand?
I mean, they can see it. I mean, there's freaking first-rounders all up and down the roster. There's former Pro Bowlers, all pros up and down the roster. There's all decade team up and down the roster. Even the guys who aren't, any of those things are really talented players. Offensive line is incredibly sound. You got Ryan Jensen played a fantastic game the other night. Tristan Wirfs, and Donnie at the left tackle, they're playing fantastic. Ali, the whole line is playing really well, and that was a really talented front. and you can't, they aren't easily handled. And they did a great job of giving Tom time. I don't think he was hit in the game. I mean, outside of that one play during the interception where they got in a shoving match, and I think that went viral.
Yeah, Tom looked amazing last night. I mean, it's funny because, you look at him and you think, holy smokes, here's a 43-year-old. I'm 34 and I feel old. I can't even imagine what it's going to be like in 9 years. And he's just dominating still. Like, this is MVP style, season yet again at 43. When is it ever going to stop is the true question.
I don't know. I mean, like people thought he was joking when he was talking about he could play to 55, and I don't think he was joking at all. He does a great job taking care of his body. He's a great teammate. He does a great job communicating, and it seems like he's still having fun. I think some people get bored and complacent with success and with greatness and with just being great for so long. Complacency is easy to fall into, and he hasn't. He's still having fun every game. You can see him getting hyped, getting energized. And he's been doing it over 20 years. It's crazy because some of the guys that are teammates with him weren't even born or were babies when he first started in the league, which is wild. And we talked about me playing with Winfield's dad. I mean, my goodness. I mean, he was watched by all these kids growing up. They're playing on the same team as him on the same field, and it's sharing the same locker room. It's really cool to see.
That's wild, man. Well, on the opposite side of the ball, you guys were going against Jalen Hurts. I mean, it seemed like it was smooth sailing in the first half, and then, Jalen started to do his thing. Obviously, he had a couple touchdown runs there. What do you think of him and his game? Where do you think he ranks amongst the QBs in the league?
Well, I think he did a great job of just taking what the defense gave him. I think he's one of those quarterbacks who wants to make a point not to rely on his legs. He wants to rely on his arm and show people that he can play from the pocket. And I think in the second half, he kind of threw that out the window and wanted to just, hey, I want to put my stamp on the game and bring my team back. And that's what he did. Whether it was with his legs or with his arm, he made plays with both. Miles Sanders also turned it on. I don't think he touched the ball nearly enough in that game for them to expect to win. And they still, came really close to winning that ball game. But you can see every time Miles Sanders touched the ball, he made freaking huge plays, and created issues. They have a really speedy receiving core. They have great tight ends. Obviously they just lost Zach, but they feel good about their backups. I think they're going to be really good in the future. I think he just is going to have to get to a place where he just does what he does best and trusts what he does best. I don't think he has to impress anybody or play a certain way. And I think sometimes you get pigeonholed into thinking, hey, I have to play this way. I have to show these guys I'm a real quarterback, and you are a real quarterback. You're a starter in the National Football League. You've proved the point. Now go out there and execute and win ball games. And I think that's what he did in the second half. He just did whatever it took to move the chains, whatever it took to put points on the board.
Yeah, well, I think a little bit of Jalen Hurts' value probably took a hit when he was essentially forced to transfer out of Bama. I think people saw him as inferior to Tua and, not this quarterback that can truly get it done. I mean, you look at him now in the pros, and it seems to me, at least by my naked eye, that he's the better pro player. And maybe Bama made a mistake in letting him go in the first place, but he's got incredible talent, outside of the players he was throwing to in Bama, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, college football is such a different beast than the National Football League. And you see that time and time again. You see the difference in success rates. You see some guys who've had enormous success in college, crazy success in college, come to the league and disappear. They go first, second round, and as they should. They put it on tape. They've been All-Americans. They've done everything they could to put themselves in that position. And sometimes the National Football League, I don't know if it's overthinking or the wrong scheme or the wrong coaches. It could be anything, the wrong team, the wrong city. Any number of things could really contribute to guys not having the same success. But I think he has done better in the National Football League. I think he's had a better career thus far. I think Tua has been a little banged up, obviously, and kind of forced into some situations. But I mean, it's as in this league, things change in a hurry. And you never know what can happen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you talked about, guys that are put a lot of pressure on and maybe questioned. I know Devontae Smith, who you obviously went up briefly against last night, was questioned because of his size. Obviously he's got the height, but he's skinny. But he's a heck of a route runner. He's got a ton of speed. Yet people questioned him after winning the Heisman and doing what he did last year and his process and transitioning to the NFL. What do you think of his game? Do you think he's got a shot to be something special in this league?
I think it's going to be hand in hand with Jalen Hurts' success, and again, they have all those weapons. They have other speedy receivers. So it's about Jalen Hurts' ability to get him the football. He's a really dynamic route runner. He's precise. He catches every ball that's thrown his way. I don't think he's had a drop on the season yet. But it's that's the thing about playing a receiver is you're tied to your quarterback. Your success is tied to your quarterback, and not even just your quarterback, the offensive line and their ability to protect the quarterback. And so, I think in his own right, is he as talented as the rest of these receivers in his core? 100%. I think he could put up some great numbers, but it's going to be up to that offense and Jalen Hurts to get him the ball so he can showcase his talent.
Richard, you just talked about, players that may be a little underrated or overlooked. There's a number of players in this league that don't get the credit that they are due. I think you slotted into that early in your career. What receivers right now do you think are a tier above what people, are painting them to be?
That's a great question. That's a really great question. And honestly, I think that a lot of them are tiered right where they should be. I think you have the old elites. Everybody's like, now Nuke Hopkins is old. You know what I mean? Julio's old. AJ Green has had a resurgence out there in Arizona, but he's old. But those are great receivers in this league, and they're having a tremendous impact still. That's why Arizona's undefeated right now. They have some of the most talented receivers in the league. And I think these young guys, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, the LSU guys, obviously Devontae Adams is right in the middle of all of it, as arguably the best receiver in this league and the best route runner. But Keenan Allen never gets enough credit ever. I don't give a dang what year it is and what he does. He creates a lot of issues, and obviously he has a quarterback in Justin Herbert who knows his spots and is getting him the ball. We just talked about Mike Williams is leading the league in touchdowns right now, and you just don't hear his name brought up very often. He was kind of a middling guy early on in his career, and he's really blossomed with a different quarterback. And since they moved to LA, he's really shown his talent. So I can't think of anybody that I necessarily feel is super, super underrated. I think there's two different tiers of, guys that are playing elite football. You got the really young, talented guys who are putting it on tape week in and week out. And you got the old guard that are, they've been doing it for forever. They're going to keep doing it.
Another one, Rich, that I know you have a tremendous amount of respect for as a former teammate, Tyler Lockett, man. He just, he gets it done. He's a heavy hitter. He's a small guy, but a home run hitter all the time. I mean, what do you think of his game? Is he underrated or slot where he needs to be?
Well, I think there's a tremendous amount of respect out there for Lockett. He and DK, rank among the NFL's best tandems. And I think that's universally understood. Obviously with Russell going down, I think people have kind of lost their luster in terms of Seattle. But I think Geno Smith came into the ball game late and really showed some flashes that he hadn't shown in years past. The ability to stand in the pocket, deliver balls when he hits his back foot, read through. An unfortunate mistake late in the game, really kind of ruined his day. But I'm excited to see how he comes out and uses those weapons, because Tyler is one of the best receivers in the league, and so is DK. And it's going to be exciting to see that offense, whether it can continue to thrive without Russell Wilson, who was completing 72% of his passes before the injury.
Now we talked about, obviously guys that are underrated, overlooked. The question I have for you, Rich, is what's going on with Odell? It seems like, he was getting back on the right path in Cleveland. Obviously, he seems like he's a lot more team-centric and focused on the ultimate goal of winning a title. I think the Browns have a hell of a team over there, but the production has been lacking over the last couple of years. Obviously, injuries have come into play, but this year, hopefully he's back to full health. What do you think needs to happen in his game to get him back to who he was and who he is?
I don't think that's who he was or who he is has changed. I think it's really difficult to come back from serious injury after serious injury. I think it's an adjustment, and it takes a second to get back up to game speed, to get back a chemistry and rapport with your quarterback, to get your old tricks back, to trust your body like you once did. I mean, people take that for granted. They're like, oh, it's like putting a patch on a tire and you just get back on the road. That's not how it works with the human body. You have a major injury. You have to at times you doubt yourself, and whether it's consciously or subconsciously, you got to get back into the rhythm of who you are and remembering that you're the guy, you're unstoppable. And I think at one point, Odell Beckham understood and believed that he's an unstoppable receiver. When he's going and he's got his rhythm and you put the ball in his spots, he's very difficult to stop. But I think after you have major injuries, you kind of second guess that subconsciously. You second guess whether you're putting that knee in the ground, that foot in the ground hard enough, or, whether is that the way you used to do it? You start watching your old tape and like, hey, is that the way I used to move? Am I moving the same way? And you start comparing and contrasting. And I think that'll change. I think he's still getting into the rhythm. It's only week 6 of the season. I think as the games progress, as he gets more comfortable, they have a really tough matchup this week with Arizona. I think you're going to see him start to look like his old self and start to be productive. But I think it was a stretch to expect him to go from, a major injury to exactly where he was pre-injury, right off the bat.
Yeah, no question. I mean, I am personally, and I know everybody, a lot of other folks are excited for him to get back to full health and get back to his old ways, because he is one of the most prolific route runners and receivers in NFL history. So that'll be interesting to see what happens with him and the Browns throughout this year. But Rich, the question you get a lot, and I'm going to ask you it too, but who do you think, I know you kind of touched on it briefly, but who are your top 3 wideouts in the NFL right now?
And again, that's I hate that question because it's so ridiculous to say. That's like saying what's the best car out there right now. It's to each his own. You know what I mean? You might find somebody who loves Audis and is going to say an Audi is the best car, or a Mercedes. Or there's a guy that loves Ferraris, or freaking whatever the case may be. You're going to have different flavors. So like I said, Devontae Adams is always in that discussion as the best receiver in football. Nuke Hopkins is always going to be in that discussion as one of the best receivers in football. Justin Jefferson, with his consistency and his route running and what he's done, is always going to be in that discussion. Stephon Diggs, who I didn't get a chance to mention before, like I said, he's not underrated anymore. The run he had last year with Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills, what he was doing, he was putting up darn near MVP numbers by himself. And so I think he's in that discussion for one of the best receivers in football. I think Jamar Chase is the best young receiver in football right now. This is the Richard Sherman podcast, brought to you by SuperDraft Fantasy, the official fantasy partner of Caesar Rewards. Listeners get their first $5 SuperDraft contest for free with the promo code PFF at registration. This year, SuperDraft is unleashing the Super15, a game that everybody has seen. You've seen the memes, you've seen the pictures, et cetera, but nobody's ever been able to play up until now. You get the $5 player, the $4 player, the $3 player, you know the game, and you get a chance to compete against me. Every week, I'll pick my team on this show, and if you can beat me, you can win some cash rewards and other prizes. No credit card required to claim your free game. Simply download the SuperDraft app on the App or Play Store. Use code PFF when you create your account and play your first $5 game free. Offer only eligible for new accounts. Super Draft paid fantasy contests are available in 34 states. Must be 18 or older to play. Visit superdraft.io for eligibility restrictions.
Now, Richard, I noticed one glaring omission from your list of best teams in the NFL, and I'm not going to lie, it kind of offends me. You left my hometown Detroit Lions off that list. What gives, man?
Well, I thought you were going to say the Dallas Cowboys, and I know I'm going to get a lot of gripe, a lot of stuff for not including the Dallas Cowboys because they've been playing lights out football, and Dak Prescott, is back where he left off. Defense, I mean, we've talked about Diggs and his picks. I mean, he's having a defensive MVP type season, and they deserve a ton of credit as well. But man, the Detroit Lions, it's just. I hurt for Dan Campbell. I hurt for him because people don't understand the amount of hours coaches put in, the amount of time and dedication and sacrifice that these coaches put in. They put in more hours than the players. They're showing up to the building 4:30 in the morning and they're not leaving till 9, 10 o'clock at night. They may get to see their family a few hours a week, if they come on Fridays, if the wives and the kids want to show up. But they make tremendous sacrifices throughout the season. And you could see it. You could see it, how much he cared and how much he wanted that victory. And it just got taken. It wasn't like, it wasn't like they didn't play a good enough game to win that. They played a good enough game, 37 seconds left on the clock. It's just unfortunate that they didn't make the plays down the stretch to win it. But, I think that's the humanity of the game. I think that showed. I think fans sometimes get enamored with, oh, man, these guys don't care. These guys aren't putting in effort. These guys, this is their lives. This is their livelihood. This is how they feed their families. And I think sometimes fans feel like they care more than the coaches or the players. And, at times it may be the case for certain teams or certain players, when it's late in the season and they've won 3 games, they have no chance at the playoffs, maybe. But I think Dan Campbell showed, the Lions picked the right guy and a guy that is incredibly passionate about this team and about winning. And it's going to do everything he can to get the ship righted. Yeah.
I mean, being a Detroiter, Rich, I mean, it's been a brutal ride. And I've been alive for 34 years on this great planet. We've won 1 playoff game. I was 4 years old when that happened. 1. I mean, and we want them to be good so bad. It's so great to see somebody with so much passion. I mean, I know you love his energy, but do you think there's crying in football?
Yes. If you care. I mean, you saw Stephon Diggs crying last year when they lost the AFC Championship game, and he stood there on the field and he was crying on the field. Stephon Diggs was crying on the field because they had lost the game because he was putting everything he had. He was putting his heart on his sleeve. He was giving the game everything he had. He was giving the fans everything he had. So there is crying in football. I mean, there's emotion in football. It's not all anger and yelling and woo, let's go. It's real pain. It's pain. It's hurt. When you feel like you can't be stopped and you're stopped. When you feel like you can't be beaten, you're beat. When you don't allow yourself to recognize failure or accept that as a possibility, then it hurts when it happens because you can't even rationalize the thought that you could lose. Like it takes you to dive so far off that ledge in terms of faith and in terms of confidence and in terms of preparation that you can't even think of failure and loss as an option. So when you lose, it pains you, it destroys you, it makes it hard to come back from, and it drives people crazy. And that's what's the crazy mental makeup of a lot of successful people is you have to have the audacity to think you cannot fail to be that successful. And then you have to fail. You have to fail and recover and get back up and then be audacious enough to think that was a fluke and it cannot happen again. Like it's unwavering. It's an unwavering thought process. And it's difficult to even explain, but I think a lot of athletes and a lot of coaches and a lot of people who've experienced will understand.
Well, that level of emotion from a team leader, a head coach, what does that do to you as the player? How does that impact you when you go into Sunday?
Well, I think it impacts them the same. I think the players that are in the locker room with him, that are in team meetings with him every day, week in and week out, already know the man. They've already seen that side of him. They spend too much time. We spend more time with each other than we do our families. And that's a sad fact. But, you're in a building 10 hours a day for I mean, I don't know, 200, 250 days a year with these people, and you get to know them intimately. You get to know the ins and outs, the good, the bad, the good days, the bad days, when they're in a good mood, a bad mood. You sit there at lunch with them, you know what food they like, they don't like, and it's just through osmosis. It's human interaction. So I think the team respects that. I don't think you're going to hear a lot of teammates like, man, I don't understand why he was crying. That's kind of soft. You're not going to hear that. You're going to hear, hey, we know this man, how much this man cares and how much he wants it, and we want it for him just as bad.
No question, man. That's I'm telling it from a Detroiter's perspective, and being faced with being a fan for my whole life, and not really having any other option to turn to outside of obviously rooting for you. It is refreshing to have a coach in here that gives a damn, is impacted by losing, because so often it seemed like it was expected. It is what it is kind of thing. Oh, same old Lions. But to have that level of energy and commitment, it's something different. It's something fresh, and it's exciting. Although an 0-5 start, you can see hopes on the horizon.
Yeah, I mean, and sometimes these situations need to happen. I mean, you found a franchise left tackle, picking early in the draft, and that's what you need to build. It sucks to build. You have to lose to build. The Rams didn't get Aaron Donald by being very good. They didn't get all those great draft picks by being a great team. They weren't a great team, and then they stockpiled. They found the right coaches. They had the talent finally, and now they're rolling. Sean McVay has them rolling. But I think there's something to be said about how you treat your players as well. They've had a couple generational talents, some of the best to ever step foot on the field, and Barry Sanders and Calvin Johnson. And I don't think they've treated them that way, and I don't know if it's football gods or it's karma or whatever it is, but you have to reconcile that. You have to go back to those guys and give them respect. You don't take money from Calvin Johnson. Right. Calvin Johnson has put Detroit on the map. Barry Sanders put Detroit on the map. You don't take money from them. You listen to them. You do what they say do. You're not bigger than them. You know what I mean? Like maybe the Dallas Cowboys are bigger than the player. You know what I mean? Pittsburgh Steelers are bigger than the player. There are some franchises, 49ers are bigger than the player, but Detroit isn't there. The best you've ever had, and those franchises don't treat their players bad. If an all-time great Pittsburgh Steeler comes back or retires or does something, you can see what they're doing with Big Ben. They're letting Ben go out on his own terms. They're letting Ben ride it till the wheels fall off, and they're showing a tremendous amount of loyalty towards him and respect and regard. And that's, you can respect that as a player, because they're like, you don't see that very often. And that's what's unfortunate about the Detroit franchise, is that like you have to show those guys, those are the best you've ever had, and you treat them like they're just another guy to come through Detroit.
Right. I mean, anytime like Calvin was just finally back at Ford Field being recognized by the team, and when the team owner came up, everyone booed. And as soon as Calvin took the mic, everyone gave him the standing O that he so deserves. But to your point, Rich, it's like, these guys sacrificed their entire professional careers to try to build something here. Show them the respect that they are due. Richard, you talked about Calvin Johnson. What was it like going up against him? Where does he rank in the, I guess, Richard Sherman hierarchy of wide receivers that you've faced in your professional career?
I mean, he's right up there near the top. I mean, he's freaking 6'5", can jump out of the gym, can run faster than any of the receivers you will ever see. And he's like, there's nothing he couldn't do. So he's the biggest receiver you're going to face, and moves like the smallest receiver you're going to face. I mean, that's why he was a generational talent. That's why he's an all-timer. I mean, you throw three people, they were doing punt vice on him in the red zone. Like, they aren't doing that on any receiver you see these days. You don't see them putting two guys at the line of scrimmage in the red zone on the goal line against anybody else. They thought he was so unstoppable that they had to put two guys and sacrifice that. They're pretty much saying, hey, run the ball. We'll let you have that. We're not letting you throw it to this guy. And it's just sad, man. It's sad because, again, we were talking about earlier, it depends on where you're drafted and the situation you're put into. Like, if he was a Dallas Cowboy, could you imagine if he was a San Francisco 49er? If you could imagine if he was if he went somewhere else. You know what I mean? If he was,
he probably would have gutted it out through his injuries and played till 33, 34 and set numerous NFL records. Because at what point does your body and your mind take precedent over playing football for a franchise that doesn't seem to prioritize winning, right?
Right. And he sacrificed. He played through injuries. He did all that. He could barely walk. You could talk to his teammates. He could barely walk. And he was doing that because he respected the men he was in the room with, that he was sharing the building with, the men that he grinded with, not because he respected that ownership or the way they treated him. It's because he wanted to win for Matt Stafford and the guys that he was playing with, Marvin Jones and the guys that were on his team. But it's just sad, man, that he didn't have the career or get the respect from the franchise that he gave everything to. But we can live down that rabbit hole.
Richard, it's Thursday night. We normally record on Tuesdays. Obviously, I'm sorry, it's Friday night. My days are clearly confused here. Tomorrow is game day, Saturday. We've about halfway through the college season. Who do you like? Obviously, they're going to be rolling out the college football playoff predictions left and right. Who stands out to you at the midway point of the season? It's a Stanford Cardinal, but we'll put them aside.
It's always the Cardinal. But I just don't like college football anymore because they never get the Pac-10 in it because, we always destroy each other and we never make it. But it's just the SEC, and people are going to call me biased or like a hater. It's just it makes it so it's always unfair. Even if an SEC team is not as good as their ranking, like they could be number 9 in the nation to start the year, they'll play a team that's 4 and they'll lose, and then they'll lose 3-4 games. But the team that's 4 will be bumped up to 1 or 2 because they beat the number 9 team when the number 9 team shouldn't have been the number 9 team. Or you'll have them arguing that 2-loss SEC teams should be in the playoffs over almost undefeated teams, or undefeated teams. Like they're saying, hey, if Bama doesn't even make the SEC championship and win it, they should still go to the playoff. And it's like, it's crazy, and that's the reason why college football, and they'll likely win it if they go,
for sure,
because they're built to win it. They do it every year.
It doesn't matter with them. It's you're right. I mean, they have so much NFL talent on that team. The longer the season goes on, the more prepared they are going to be to win a title. So when you discredit essentially Texas A&M beating them in amazing fashion, an incredible game, but then they only drop in the rankings to 5, right? I mean, they're inevitably going to squeeze into the top 4 and they're going to make the playoffs. At some point in time, they've got to your point, eliminate this SEC bias. Everyone knows Bama's the cream of the crop, but why is it that they just don't care about them losing to Texas A&M when if any other team were to lose that game, they would drop out of the top 10?
No question. And it's because Bama is who they are. They've earned this right. They've earned national championship after national championship after national championship. Every playoff, I think, since its inception, they've been in. But I think that's what makes college football so predictable and not as fun to watch because there's what's going to happen. Hey, Bama's going to get in the playoffs and they're likely going to win it. Every now and then, Clemson will figure out a way to do it. Ohio State has figured out a way to get through the game and win it. But more than likely, more times than not, LSU went and got it one time. But Bama's going to likely win it. And there's not enough parity in college football right now. There's not parity because for the first time since 2008, a number 1 ranked team lost to an unranked team, and they're still top 5.
Right.
And like you can't, and it's accurate. It's a good ranking because they're really a top 5. They're probably still the best team in the nation. They just lost, but you have to have some consequence for losing.
Exactly. You can't just simply put them at 5. They're going to squeeze their way in. Doesn't matter. Richard, I have turned you into a semi-Michigan State Spartan fan, and we're looking midway through at the Heisman race is starting to develop. Kenneth Walker III is if you go on the Vegas odds, he's the 4th highest odds of winning the Heisman. This kid's an absolute stud. I mean, he's 94-yard run last week against Rutgers. I know you don't know his game a ton, but you watch him for 10 plays and you can immediately see NFL talent. Is there anything about him that screams Heisman to you?
Yeah, I mean, his talent. I mean, what he's done is what screams Heisman to me. The man is put it on tape. He's gone out there week. It was an unheralded Michigan State team to begin the season. Even you yourself was like, hey, you know, there's not a ton of high expectations, but you were going to the games and you were excited. You were excited to see your boys play. And they've won every game they played in. And he's a huge part of that. He came in, and I think that's the most cool kind of story, is the guy who nobody expects to be something, and he's out here showing you, hey, he's special. And he's showing it week in and week out consistently.
And yet, to your point, Richard, you look at Vegas's odds of winning the Heisman, and up there are Bryce Young, Matt Corral, and CJ Stroud from Ohio State. All the 2 SEC schools and then Ohio State. What do they all have in common? They all have losses on the season. Why is it that these unheralded players that are proving it? I mean, here's a guy that leads the nation in rushing yards by a landslide and is putting up highlight reel after highlight reel, and he's not even the top dog in the fight right now.
Don't get me started on that. I mean, that's Stanford in a nutshell every year. I mean, Andrew Luck, Toby Gerhardt, Christian McCaffrey, second. And their excuse was he didn't play enough. It doesn't matter that their stats are gaudy. It doesn't matter that Christian McCaffrey broke the all-time record that Barry Sanders set. It's like they don't watch enough. You know, they only watch what they want to watch. So they're not watching Michigan State right now because they don't think they have to. They don't think they need to. They don't think it's relevant. And by the time it's relevant, it'll be the Big Ten championship game, and they'll be playing, or it'll be them against Michigan, and they'll be like, wait, who's this kid? Wow, he's pretty good. But by then, their minds are already made up on who deserves to win it.
Let's switch gears here a little bit. I want to talk about something that I know is near and dear to your heart. We've talked enough about my hometown. Richard, you are a massive LA Lakers fan. So much so, I'll never forget us sitting second row at the ESPYs years ago, and I can't even remember what was going on, but the camera was on you, and you're on your phone. I'm like, Richard, what are you doing? And I looked down, and you were watching whoever the center was, the Serbian center, Vaka Zubac or whatever his name is. Zubac. And you're like, I'm watching the Summer League. I'm watching my boy Zubac. Richard, what are your expectations this year in the NBA? Who do you like the most?
Championship. Lakers, 18, banner, parade.
What do you think about what's going on with Kyrie right now?
Parade, banner, Lakers. I don't know. I mean, it's one of those situations where, you know, he's making a point. He's protesting. He says he's doing it for the people who can't speak, the people that are losing their jobs to the vaccine. I mean, it's exhausting to talk about, you know, because it's talked about all day, every day. But I mean, it's just his decision, and, you know, he'll have to live with the consequences. And you know, if he feels good about where he stands in it, you know, it's his decision to make. It's unfortunate because his team has championship aspirations, and he's a huge part of those championship aspirations. And as Stephen A. Smith said, these guys left their teams. You know, James Harden came, everybody came to play with you in Brooklyn, and for you to say, hey, well, I'm making a decision for me after these guys selflessly came out for you is unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, as an athlete, I know these are like new circumstances that we're dealing with, but I'm sure that you dealt with some level of this parallel throughout your career where maybe a player was saying they were injured and wasn't. You know, obviously for KD, guys like KD and Harden that said, I came here to play with you. How does that impact you as an athlete when you see a fellow teammate be, I guess the word, selfish?
Well, I mean, you try to keep it in perspective. You know what I mean? He's a teammate, you know, and you as a teammate and as a family member, you try to treat it that way. You try to keep things in the most optimistic perspective. You try to say, hey, we love him. He's doing what's best for him. We support him, you know, and that's all you can do. Or things get too negative in your head and you can never get to a space where you can play productive basketball if he comes back. So I don't think they're allowing themselves to go down that rabbit hole in a negative way. I think they're supporting him. They're confident that he'll change his mind and come help them win a championship. And that's all he can do, because if they turn the other way, there's no coming back from that. There's no coming back once you turn your mind into that negative space and say he's selfish and he's letting us down and he don't really mess with us like that, or because even once he comes back, the chemistry's gone. You know what I mean? Because you always have that feeling towards him. Another week, another Super 15 contest by Super Draft, and you know me, I got to pick my team. If you want to pick your team, use the promo code PFF to get your first game for free. This week, last week I went a little different. This week I'm going with the heavy hitters first. My $5 pick, the man, the myth, the legend, highest completion percentage, all that good stuff coming off a heck of a game. Lamar Jackson, I need you to do it for me. Do it for me. I see what you did for others. I need you to do that for me. My $4 pick is going to be Jonathan Taylor. 25 runs of 15 plus. Only second behind Derrick Henry. Again, I need that from you this week. My $3 pick is going to be none other than Mike Williams of the LA Chargers. Big play machine, touchdown maker, leading the league in touchdowns right now. Give me those points. My $2 pick is going to be one of Lamar's favorite targets, Mark Andrews, the highest graded tight end in PFF. I need it. I need it. And I got to beat Mitch this week. Now Mitch wants to get involved. Jeez Louise.
Damn right, I'm getting involved.
My $1 is Devontae Booker. For obvious reasons. He's subbing in for Saquon. He's primed for a big week. They're gonna need him to have a big week, and I'm gonna need you to have a big week. Mitch, who you got?
I like your Devontae Booker pick. I got him in mind too. I think he's going to be have an opportunity to get a lot of goal line carries. Obviously, he showed last week he can catch the ball out of the backfield a little bit. And frankly, the Giants look like a little bit better offense this year, whereas years past they seem to kind of be stuck in that revolving door of sub-mediocrity. So I got Devontae as well. But starting from the top, I'm doing things a little bit different than you. I'm going the heavy hitters and heavy hitters, 2 QBs in a row. Your boy Kyler Murray, most 20-plus yard completions in the NFL. So you want to talk about heavy hitter, there's one for you. Then I'm going Justin Herbert. He's been an absolute stud this year. I think he's a top 5 quarterback in this league. The sky's the limit for him. I mean, he's got a ton of potential, a ton of fantasy potential. PFF's 3rd highest graded QB this season. Justin Herbert's my number 2. And then Robert Woods. I mean, it pains me. I'm from Detroit. Matty Stafford's out there slinging the rock to Robert Woods. Him and Cooper Kupp are really benefiting this year. Robert Woods had a huge week last week. 150 yards, 87 grade on PFF. I think that's going to be another situation for him this week. And then since I went 2 big ones at the top, I got to go with another $1. And Hunter Henry is starting to come along now. So, we saw it. Mac Jones, I think, is elevating his game week after week. I think Hunter Henry's going to get it done. I think he's a great option with $1. So those are my picks. I'm excited to take you down there, Rich.
Nah, I feel good about mine, Mitchell. I feel good. I like your Kyler Murray picks. I think, he just got another weapon, but he's not active this week in Zach Ertz. Obviously, Justin Herbert's doing his thing, but feel good about my guys.
We'll see what happens. So, Richard, I obviously played Thursday. Now it's Friday. What are you doing the rest of the weekend? You got time off here. I know you hate Thursday night football. Yet again, strikes you. What are you doing Saturday and Sunday?
Thursday night football dictated what I'm going to be doing, which is rehab every day because Thursday night football. So I'll be rehabbing. I'll be sitting here rehabbing some more until my hamstring's better and I can go out and play the game I love.
Well, can't wait for that time to come, Rich. It's been a fun time, guys. Thanks so much for joining yet again. Next week, we got a great guest, Justin Jefferson of the Minnesota Vikings, who obviously Richard spoke very highly of. We appreciate you guys. Richard, I'll let you sign it off.
Well, I appreciate you guys checking in with us. It's another Mitchie Richie connection back at it again. We'll be back at it again next week with Justin Jefferson. We're going to ask him all the questions. If you guys got any questions, you got anything you want us to ask him, submit it to either PFF or you can submit it to me and I'll see if I can find it. But we're going to try to keep it fun, keep it interesting. He's a fun guy. He's a heck of a player. Can't wait.